everybody thought I'd lost my mind. I kind of did. Sometimes you do have to lose your mind a little bit to find it. And that's the scary, like, teetering line. Like, do I need to go to a mental hospital, or am I just discovering the real version of myself? In 2011, I was hit with anxiety and depression, just completely what felt like out of nowhere. I had always been a performer. I'd always been a speaker. I'd always done things like that since I can remember. So my husband is a Black man, and I was at work. I'd been there for about 3 months, and I put a picture of my daughter on my desk, and she's biracial. And my boss came in and asked me, was my daughter mixed? He said she's really brown. And I said, yeah, she's biracial. And he said, your husband is brown? And I said, yes. And then the next day, the owner of that company would not speak to me anymore. And we had meetings every day. He wouldn't speak to me anymore. And I am very mouthy and walked up to him and said, is there a problem? And he said, not at all. And I said, well, is there a problem because I'm married to a Black man? And he was appalled. Absolutely not. And I said, well, you were acting normal until I put the picture of my daughter on my desk. And he scurried off to a meeting, and the next day they let me go. So I remember back then being like, everything's fine. I'm fine. We're good. We're just going to move on, keep our heads up, and we're going to keep going. What I didn't realize is that 2011 version of April didn't know how to deal with things that hurt. She just knew how to be very positive and uplifting and just keep moving on, and never actually feel those feelings, and just move on to what's positive. Well, around the same time, I had a cold, and I could not get over this cold, and went to the doctor. They did a blood pressure check on me, and my blood pressure was high. Well, I was 26 years old at the time, and I had never been told anything was wrong with me. Anything's wrong with my health, you go, they check you, everything's fine, you check out. So this day, the PA said, wow, your blood pressure is really high. And then she switched arms, asked me to breathe, uncross your legs. And she said, your blood pressure is really high. It just looks like you have some sort of viral thing going on, or a small cold. Just let it run its course and just keep an eye on your blood pressure. So I didn't realize at the time how much this had just psychologically, it almost like traumatized me that she said that my blood pressure was high. So I walk out into the parking lot and I start blacking out. I start having a panic attack, and I didn't even know what a panic attack was. So of course I'm like, I'm dying. This is death, whatever's happening to me. But I make it to my car just enough to just sit there and take a breath and kind of get in the car. And from that moment forward, for 365 days straight, I had panic attacks multiple times throughout the day, all day long, couldn't breathe, intrusive thoughts. And it's like my whole life just shifted upside down. So after about probably a month or two of just really sitting in that, thinking I'm dying, going to the hospital over and over again for them to do EKGs. And for some reason, once I got to the hospital, I felt safe, obviously, because what better place to feel like you're dying than in a hospital? Because if anybody's going to save you, it's them. And I would feel safe once I got there. So by the time they hooked me up to machines, everything was fine. But I kept saying, you would think that's encouraging. That was not encouraging, because I'm not fine. This is not fine, whatever this is. So after just a couple of months of no one really being able to help me, they were running heart monitors on me. I had a doctor talk to me about, are you depressed? Well, I didn't know what depressed was. I had always been upbeat and happy and just positive, and what the heck is depressed? And I said, I don't know, you're the doctor. And he said, would you like to try some medication? And he gave me a sample pack of Lexapro. Well, back during that time, I was incredibly religious back then. And I just felt like if I took those pills, then I was not trusting in my higher power, and therefore I just decided not to take them. So the religious aspect really helped me out a lot. It was twofold. It helped me out a lot because it really had me anchored to my belief system during that time. And I searched and searched and searched for healing and all the things that are promised through that. Then, but I would go to church and no one understood. So I would say, this is what's happening to me. And it almost was too heavy for the small group setting. It was too heavy, too real. And people would just pass over it, which made me feel more alone. And then I eventually got to a point where suicidal ideations came in, and I hadn't made a plan for suicide, but I was really close. And I had believed that if I take my life, my husband and my daughter, they'll be set free, because I'm just a drag. Like, I'm no fun. I had agoraphobia, did not want to leave home, didn't want to go anywhere. I went from being this like wild and crazy fun, outgoing person to just everything is terrifying. I would be in the shower and just be so convinced somebody was in the house trying to kill me. And like, where is this coming from? So I finally talked to a doctor who said, we have this thing in our brains. Just look at it like a curtain. It's like a curtain in our brain, and it shields us from all the sensory stuff that's coming at us. And your curtain has been pulled back. So you feel the clothes on your skin. You feel the way this earring is hanging from my ear. You feel all this sensory overload that you're not supposed to feel or know all the time. And so it's like your body can't process fast enough what's happening to it. And it's triggering just anxiety over and over again, which I thought was really interesting. But there really wasn't much help for that. It just was one of those things where you've now learned this, you have to unlearn it. So that at the time really wasn't encouraging, because I'm like, just tell me I'm dying, or tell me that I've got some ailment so that we can at least focus on that ailment, and then I'll get better. Nothing. So one day I was getting to the place of really just taking my life as the only answer for this. And I wasn't talking to anyone, because I felt like if anybody knows, they're going to take my kid away from me. They're going to put me in mental health hospital, which back then I thought mental health help was like the movies, and it's crazy and padded rooms, and you're going to be drugged up and not know who you are anymore. A few years ago, I worked in behavioral health addiction treatment and realized that's not at all what it's like. And you actually can get a lot of help there if you do go or decide to do that. It's actually a good time out for yourself sometimes. So anyway, I never got the help. I fought through it all myself. I got into this really just anchoring to scriptures, and I'm going to fight through this, and it's not going to be easy. But I remember one day in the car, and I just thought, I am a happy person. I'm a happy person. I don't know who I am anymore. And I just felt like this word of just spoke to my spirit and said, but who are you if you're not happy? And that just kind of leveled me into, shit, I don't know. So I started to unravel during that 365 days of constant panic attacks and anxiety. Who am I under this layer? And who am I under this layer? And honestly, the more you see those realities, the more you can get more anxious, because I don't know. And so especially coming from a very religious background, this is who you are. And you climb these ladders of ministry, and then you get to the top of this ministry ladder and you go, I don't even know who the F I am anymore. And I feel so far away from whoever I am that I'm not happy. I just need to get back down. So I stopped all the ministry stuff. Everybody thought I'd lost my mind. I kind of did. Sometimes you do have to lose your mind a little bit to find it. And that's the scary, like, teetering line. Like, do I need to go to a mental hospital, or am I just discovering the real version of myself and finding myself back to that person? So my journey went through going to realize that there's good and there's bad, or at least that's what we've been told. And when we label good, bad, this is good, we categorize those things into what is what, this is that, this is that. And there's a portion of ourself that we leave kind of tossed to the side, because those are the bad pieces of me. Let me leave her over there in the corner. And as I have journeyed along over the past years, I've realized that there's actually that ache and this calling back to ourselves, because we've labeled it and sat it in a corner. And when I went back, I always look at it like I went back to rescue her, bring her out and say, hey, you know what? You're not bad. You're not bad. These parts of you are not bad. And I need you with me, and we can figure this out together. So there's kind of been this transformation of coming back together with myself, those other pieces of myself that somebody deemed bad. whether that was from childhood or church or myself, because a lot of times we'll think somebody told us something when it was really just our perception, and we told ourselves, and then we pushed ourselves into these corners. So basically that year is kind of the foundation of just waking up into, okay, now what? So that was 2011. I started to get better within 365 days. And then in 2015, I worked alongside a PhD psychologist. And man, for 6 months straight, he and I mean, it was the most incredible unraveling experience, the most painful unraveling experience, because I thought I had been healed from anxiety, but I realized I had just learned how to cope with anxiety. And so being able to go to the grocery store, being able to not have the intrusive thoughts anymore. But man, I was so debilitated with anxiety and just was like, push through it, you're fine. And when you've gone from a year of hiding in a corner to all of a sudden you are doing normal things again, you feel like, I'm healed now. So I started teaching people how to overcome anxiety and this and that. And then I realized 4 years into that, I'm still suffering from that heavily myself. And it wasn't until I talked to this PhD psychologist who was like, basically, you're all messed up still. So you just learn to cope. And so I realized at that point, I don't want to be a person that teaches other people how to do this, and this. You are the answer. I don't have your answer.